Today, I'm going to show you guys a couple of different Coyote blocks. People ask a lot of questions about our AED 1000, what parts we use in it, and why we're not doing this or why we're not doing that or sleeving this and all this other stuff. And I have a bunch of blocks here. It is engine building season. So we've got some nice Gen 1, 2 stuff. These are all cleaned, machined, and ready to go for our AED 1000. This is one of those in a Gen 3. Here's another Gen 3 version. Here's a Gen 2 Boss with Boss stuff. These blocks are actually the weak point in a Coyote. The connecting rods, the Gen 2, the Boss, Gen 2, Gen 3 connecting rods are all the same. Those connecting rods, we've pushed to 1200, never seen an issue. Assuming a good tune. The connecting rod bolts are robust. They can take RPM. The crankshaft is a micro alloy forged. It's known to be indestructible. If you want to make it stronger than the 1500 that it can be pushed to in factory form, you can actually grind it and smooth it out to get rid of the stress risers. The pistons are an M142 casting, okay? They are a super alloy. They expand at the rate of 4032 and are as strong as a 2618. They run a 1.2 millimeter top and second ring. That's plenty. We put a steel ring in the top and gap it for boost. The piston to wall clearance on our AED 1000s is slightly opened up, not much. And even factory piston to wall clearance, we've tested at 1200 to the tires, and we saw minor scuffing of the cylinder wall at the top because these blocks, the factory blocks here, are not honed with torque plates. And when you put heads on them, the top of the board just kind of squeezes in a bit, and that's the tightest spot. So factory pistons will over expand. It's all about heat, right? The pistons expand with heat, everything expands with heat. And the pistons are designed, not perfect cylinders. The tops are actually smaller bore, smaller diameter than the skirt because the top gets way more heat than the bottom. So it expands under perfect conditions. It's a perfect cylinder. When you put too much heat, which is directly related to cylinder pressure, which is directly related to torque, okay? So you have a bunch of torque, they will expand more. Ethanol fuel, alcohol fuel can keep that at bay a bit, and so can good cooling system and piston squirters. We use piston squirters in all of our engines, by the way. We want to keep those pistons cool and happy. So we've taken these motors with the factory blocks and a mid plate to 1200 to the tires. We rate these at 1000, and we've got a bunch out there just living day to day at 1000 to the tires on E85. They're just going, okay? The blocks themselves, there's a reason why we run a mid plate at 1000. The blocks themselves, here's a factory block, Gen 1 block. The casting, everybody's very familiar with it. It's a very coarse casting. You have a lot of these sharp edges, a lot of stress risers, okay? It's machined. It's a 319 low pressure casting, okay? So these blocks geometrically are strong. We have a double lifter valley, okay? So this drain, oil drain from the head actually goes into this oval shaped lifter valley. We don't have a cam running through the middle like, you know, an LS or whatever. So the main webbing can be pretty robust. See in here, here's where we have that double valley. So this is an air valley. It's for windage, and it's the oil drain, and it drains down. So this here is pretty thin on top of the main. Okay, these blocks, 319 low pressure castings, is a very rigid material. Same material the heads are made out of. It's extremely rigid. It does not like to flex. So if you start flexing these things, you'll end up cracking them, okay? A lot of people have seen cracks in the valley and everything. Well, yeah, you have this side of the motor and that side of the motor, and crankshaft in between, and it's twisting on each other. Okay, to make matters worse, we got the bolts here, are the motor mounts bolt straight to the cylinder wall. So the motor mounts are like out to here, right? They're big ass wings. So you start flexing the motor mounts and it will flex the block. The motor mounts are just so big, they will actually flex the block, and the block does not like to flex. So you'll get cylinder scuffing because you'll start distorting the middle cylinders, the middles, okay? So we recommend a mid plate with these things. Here is a Predator motor or block. So this block is different. Has a much more closed deck, okay, with reinforcements here. This is based on very, very, very similar to the Ford Performance engine. I run the Ford Performance block in my race car at 1600 horsepower right now. And it's the same deck design. Same extra material was put in above the mains for strength, and this is a little bit thicker here. Okay, so these are stronger blocks. Still, it's a 319 low pressure casting. You still have the exact same rib design here. Okay, so although this block will take more power because it is thicker in the main webbing, you still need a mid plate with it. Okay, it's still got the nice nodular iron mains. Okay, so this block, very good block compared to the factory one because it has extra material. Surprisingly, this block, the stock Gen 1 block, weighs 90 pounds. The Predator weighs 88 pounds, and that's because of the bigger bore and no iron sleeve. Okay, this is an arc wire transfer. So we have added material elsewhere that only accounted for a minor addition in weight, a couple of pounds, and then a reduction of weight here. Over here is a block that we've had at 1600 to the tires without a mid plate, standard motor mounts, and this thing doesn't flex. This is a Bear Motors Coyote block, and this is not what this is their newest version. So of course it has sleeves. These are not Dartons, I don't think. But you know, they're sleeved, they're thick. Okay, we have a closed deck. Okay, this block here is extremely similar to the Gen 3 and the Predator. Okay, it's a copy in many ways, but it's not 319. This is A356. A356 will flex. It has different thermal properties, and it is more robust aluminum. The material is more robust. It will flex. It will be able to handle some twisting without cracking. It's the same design as far as the double lifter valley. Let's go around here. This unit does not have the billet main caps with the 4 side bolts of the previous Bear Motors blocks. Okay, this has all factory main bolts, which are not an issue at all. This is a Y block design. See, it's the block skirt comes down in a Y shape, so you're able to bolt the main caps from the side. These are just fine. This here is thicker above the mains, even thicker than the Predator. And you can see the Predator has this piece here that's a support. Okay, that's a difference from the Ford Racing, and it is copied over here. Same thing. Okay, they're both plenty thick. This one is a Predator. It has these oil squirters. Another addition that we like is oil squirters. They're not the style that we would like to see, but they are in the mains. Okay, so you could put the squirters in from a GT350 in here, and that's excellent. We can have oil squirters. This is thicker in the ribbing here, and it's thicker in many places. Actually, this block is 98 pounds, so it's 10 pounds heavier than this. In no short order, I mean, no small aspect of it is due to the thick ass iron sleeves, but still the aluminum is thicker all over the place. This is the only block with factory motor mounts that we've not had problems with twisting and cracking without a mid plate or motor plate. Another feature of their design is they put an O-ring here. It's fine. I mean, it's not necessary, but whatever. Another change they did for this block, aside from the different style of main bolts, which I prefer, is we no longer have the AN here for AN fittings for the oil filter adapter. Now it'll take a factory one, and that is great. So you see this one here on the Predator, Gen 2, Gen 3 style, and identical here. So that's cool. You don't have to run a remote oil filter, which is one of the big reasons why we did not recommend this block originally for street cars. It was mostly just for straight up race. We do have a couple of street cars out there with them. But now with this addition and the oil squirters, we can now start building these and using these for the high horsepower street cars. You know, if you got 1600 to the tires on the street, here's your block. Okay. For a race car guy, yeah, here's your block. I'd still run a mid plate. It's beneficial in a race car anyways, and a motor plate, but it's not required to keep the block happy like it is on the 319 low pressure casting material from Ford. You can also see that the casting smoothness here is a much higher quality than the rough one over here on Ford. Not that this is bad. This is it just is what it is. It is nice getting something that is smoother. It means that the quality of the casting process is just higher. You can tell, like, you know, they have these jagged marks where it gets cut after it's cast, right? And, you know, you just don't have that kind of nastiness here. So this is a nice one. This is the difference in the blocks. See the strength, added strength for, let's say you are running a mid plate like we're going to do with this one. So here's the back of the block. See how thick and robust this is, okay, versus over here. So we have these bolt holes for the transmission are reinforced, okay. Some of the GT350 guys have broken this off. Ford Performance motors, we've seen that from excessive vibrations. Same with this side, okay, versus here. This is just fine, don't get me wrong. It just is beefier in many ways than what we would normally find with a factory casting. So we do have these ports here are for windage. They go all the way to the front, and this does not have that. So you have this one here, right? You have them here. It does not go to the front. There is no windage hole. You see, these are windage holes. There's nothing here, okay? And on the Gen 1s, there is not either. This was added later to promote the oil air foam going to the front, hitting the front cover, and then draining back into the oil pan underneath the windage tray. This doesn't have that provision. Obviously, it would be stronger without this hole. And we actually have crank scrapers and windage trays, so this is not really an issue. We don't actually need any of this stuff, any of these holes here for balancing of these areas in the block, because we're going to be running a crank scraper and a windage tray, which controls the oil properly anyways. So it might take some modifications to get it to fit just the way we want, but whoop-de-doo, because it is a different. If you look over here, it's a different design. Our windage tray goes right to here in the crank scraper, and should be pretty close, actually. So anyways, just a nice visual reference of the differences in the blocks, and why, you know, a brief explanation of why we recommend not putting expensive parts into a factory block, because it'll handle 1,000, and beyond that, it's not the parts that are the weak point, it's the block. These ones, you know, we have at much higher horsepower. And then that one for those guys, like let's say you have a supercharger, you can't run a mid plate, you don't want to run a motor plate because you got air conditioning and you don't want to get rid of anything, right? Some of those motor plates won't allow you to run an air conditioner or an alternator, right? That's straight up race car shit. Well, this block, you don't need to worry about that. It will handle the power without issues. So this don't come machined. You got to do everything. And I've got to verify. The other blocks they had, you had to line hone to get the size you want. I've just got to verify that. But other than that, a bore and hone deck, square deck should be good to go. Typical race block.